Okay. All right. Well, welcome everyone. Welcome to the monthly Preferred CFO web class. This is a pro bono free web class where we endeavor to be able to teach C-suite members, in particular CFOs, CEOs, to know what to be asking for, and controllers how to be able to do what we do. We're fractional CFOs. We're national in scope, and have been doing this for many, many years. My name is Scott Crawford. I'm a partner with Preferred CFO. Hidden in the background is Tara Chrisman. She's our admin for today. Today's topic is financial inputs for strategic planning. Let me repeat that again. It's financial inputs for strategic planning. And Bob McDonnell, who's also here on the screen with me, will be the presenter today. Let me give you just very quick background on Bob. He's a member of our team, been with us for a number of years. Bob's ability, his proven ability, is to successfully analyze an organization's critical business requirements, identify deficiencies and potential opportunities, and to deliver innovative and cost-effective solutions for enhancing competitiveness, increasing revenues, and improving customer service offerings. That's a big mouthful, but it also is what qualifies him to be able to speak on this topic today. Bob has been an advisor and a consultant for numerous CEOs from small businesses to Fortune 500 companies. He has been consistently recognized for excellence in coaching services. Some of you may relate to this, some of you may hold it against him, but Bob is a graduate of the Georgia Institute of Technology. Today's webinar is expected to be somewhere about 40, 45, 50 minutes. We would ask you to please use the Q&A feature first. So Tara will monitor and consolidate questions. If you have any specific questions about how this applies to you, we are more than happy to give you some pro bono one-on-one time. We'll put that link into chat here at the beginning and then also at the end. There's no cost for these web classes. They're offered as part of our ongoing association with Vistage. So with that having been said, and we'll announce the upcoming webinars here at the end. Again, use the Q&A feature at the bottom to submit your questions. And Bob, we'll turn the time over to you.
Sharing my screen.
Perfect.
All
Got
right,
it.
everybody. Pardon me?
Visual. I want to confirm that screen is working. Screen share is on.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Financial Inputs for Strategic Planning. It's Q4, the time when most companies take stock of their year to date and begin looking to 2026. For many, this is when strategic planning moves from a someday project to a right now priority. Today, we're going to explore how the quality of your financial inputs determines the quality of your strategic plan. Oh, man. Think of it as driving at night. If your headlights are dim or out of alignment, you're steering by instinct instead of clarity. Our goal is to help you turn those headlights on, brighten, align, so that your strategic planning process becomes confident, data-driven, and forward-facing. When we talk about strategic planning, most leaders picture goals, KPIs, and vision statements, but few think about the data engine underneath it. But before we dive into this process, I want to open one of my favorite quotes from W. Edwards Deming, the father of modern quality management. Deming said, "Each system is perfectly designed to get the result that it does." Think about that. If your business produces inconsistent results, that's because it's perfectly designed to do so. The same applies to your strategic planning. If the financial inputs that feed your planning process are incomplete, outdated, or unreliable, then your plan will be perfectly designed to produce those same imperfect results. Today, our focus is on making sure your planning system is designed to produce the outcomes you actually want. Okay, quick gut check time. How confident are you in the financial numbers your team produces today? On a scale of 1 to 5, or on our smiley face schedule here, where would you rate your confidence? That confidence level is exactly what we're here to strengthen. Every plan is built on assumptions, and those assumptions are only as strong as the data behind them. So what's the risk if your inputs are incomplete or inaccurate? Well, false confidence. Plans look solid on paper, but cash, cost, or margin assumptions don't align with reality. We see execution bottlenecks. Teams can't deliver because resources, money, people, or time weren't planned correctly. And we see lost momentum. When plans miss their mark, leaders lose confidence in the process. Planning becomes an annual chore instead of a growth engine. Remember, every planning tool is only as strong as the data that feeds in it. And if you feed it incomplete information, you'll get incomplete outcomes. So today, our desired takeaways are: number one, what financial data do you need before you start the strategic planning process? Number two, how do you measure the quality and reliability of that data? Number three, what do you do if some of it's missing, inconsistent, or unusable? Because when inputs are credible, the outputs become actionable, fundable, and confident building. If we can do this, we can keep you from feeling like this. We want to keep you informed and away from any surprises. So let's start with the basics. Here are the 10 essential financial inputs you'll need to fully leverage strategic planning. For each, I'll explain what it is, why it matters, as well as the risks to planning if you don't have it. As we go through them, think, do we have this already? Is it decision grade, or would I hesitate to trust it in a boardroom conversation? So if you have paper handy, you might want to keep it by side so you can make some notes and maybe even use it to grade yourself. We're going to use some quality standards of a traffic light: green, yellow, and red. Green means it's reconciled timely and accurately, something you can confidently base a decision on. Yellow means it's there, but it's incomplete, late, or inconsistent. And red means it's missing or unreliable. Wherever you see red or yellow in your current financials, that's where risk lives. And our goal is to get as much of your data in the green zone as possible. Let's go ahead and start. The first tool are your historical financials. Those are accrual-based P&L and balance sheet. These are your monthly financial statements prepared on an accrual basis and tied back to a fully reconciled general ledger. And that means that revenue is recorded when it's earned and expenses are recorded when they're incurred, not when cash happens to move. So why is this important? Cash accounting can make your numbers look better or worse just because of timing. Accrual-based statements remove that distortion. They give you a consistent, trustworthy view of profitability and financial position. When your books are on an accrual basis and tied to reconciled general ledger, you're building a foundation for credible planning and confident decisions. Now, if you don't have this, the risks are: if you're not on accrual or your general ledger isn't fully reconciled, you're essentially flying with foggy headlights. You might think you're profitable when you're actually losing money, or assume you have plenty of cash when major bills are about to hit. Timing differences can make the business look healthier or weaker than it really is. Decisions are based on feel instead of fact. Getting this input green brings clarity, credibility, and control. These are the things every CEO needs before the plan goes ahead. So take a second, think about what you have. If you have a sheet of paper, grade yourself green, yellow, or red for the first input. The second input is a monthly budget. An annual budget is your company's financial game plan for the year. It projects revenue, expenses, and profit based upon your goals, assumptions, and priorities. Think of it as financially translating your strategy. It shows how your plans turn into numbers and helps everyone understand what success should look like. A well-built budget is a decision tool. It can help set realistic targets, allocate resources intentionally, and help you anticipate when cash and staffing needs will be needed throughout the year. The reason why it's important is because a well-built budget establishes a clear financial baseline and performance targets. It aligns leadership on priorities, trade-offs, and investment capacity. And it turns strategic discussions from what do we want to do to what can we afford to do and when. When this isn't green, Your plan risks on being a wish list instead of an executable roadmap. Starting strategic planning without current reliable budget is like taking a cross-country route without knowing how much fuel you have. Without one, priorities drift, goals lose credibility, and leadership loses visibility, and so decisions get made reactively instead of strategically. The result, a plan looks good on paper, but collapses in execution because it's not tied to financial reality. And once you have a budget, you can then prepare a budget to actual reporting. These are reports that show how your actual reports compare to both your budget and last year's numbers. It can tell you whether the business is performing as planned, better than planned, or worse than planned. The reason why it's important is because it's your financial feedback loop. It tells you whether your assumptions are holding true, and if not, where and why. Before starting planning, this is essential. It transforms the process from guesswork into grounded decision making. You can see what strategies worked, which didn't, and what adjustments are needed before setting new goals. It's how you ensure your next plan is built on facts and not optimism. Now, if you plan without it, you're looking at outdated information, potentially inaccurate information. Without that, assumptions can carry forward. Flawed expectations roll into next year's plan. Blind spots grow. Variances go unexplained, hiding both risks and opportunities. Credibility can erode. You begin to question the numbers, so confidence in the plan fades. And accountability weakens. Teams discuss what we think happened instead of managing what actually did. The result, plans drift from the financial reality and execution falters because nobody knows what's working. Well, if you have some paper next to you, go ahead and rate yourself. Traffic light, green, yellow, red. The 12-month rolling forecast, that's a forward-facing projection that always shows the next 12 months of revenue, expenses, and cash flow. Instead of building a budget once a year and forgetting about it, this forecast gets updated every month with the latest information and assumptions. It's how you keep track of the future, and it's useful because it's not outdated and stale. Strategic planning depends on knowing where the business is actually headed, not where it's been. A rolling forecast provides you that visibility. It continuously updates you on your view of revenue, expenses, and cash flow so you can make decisions based on the latest reality and not on last year's assumptions. If this isn't green, your strategic plan is built on stale data. What happens is decisions lag reality. Leaders react to changes after they happen instead of anticipating them. This can cause the false confidence we talked about. Resources misalign. Cash, staffing, and capacity plans drift from what's actually needed. That causes execution bottlenecks. Opportunities can be missed. You can't seize on what you can't see coming. And confidence can erode. Plan loses credibility when the actual results don't match projections and you lose momentum. The next input, 13-week cash projections. This is your short-term cash roadmap, a week-by-week look at the money coming in and money going out over the next 90 days. It tracks things like collections, payroll, loan payments, and major expenses so you always know what's coming ahead. Think of it as your early warning system for cash. Now, it's important because cash is the fuel that keeps your strategy moving. Before you begin planning, you need to know how much fuel you actually have and how long it will last. A 13-week cash flow gives you the near-term visibility to the inflows and outflows so you can make strategic decisions with confidence. It ensures your plan grows along and they align with the liquidity reality. When it's in place, the forecast shows whether your current cash positions can support your new initiatives and identifies cash crunches early to adjust spending or collections. It's not just about avoiding a crisis, it's giving you a strategy for your financial runway. Now, planning without this can cause some problems with visibility. Surprises become routine, payroll and vendor payments collide with slow collections. Decisions become reactive as leaders scramble for quick fixes, tapping lines of credit, delaying purchases, or cutting corners. Credibility erodes, missed payments or last minute cash moves shake internal and external confidence. Your momentum can stall, strategic priorities get delayed or abandoned for lack of near term liquidity. The result, a plan that looks bold on paper stalls in execution because the business runs out of cash before its goals. The next tool, contribution margin by product, service, or location. This is a report that shows where you actually make money. It breaks down revenue and direct costs by product, service, or business units so you can see what parts of the business are profitable and which ones are quietly dragging you down. We find that it's very common that companies do not have very good visibility into this area. It's the difference between looking at total revenue and understanding profitable revenue. Sometimes selling more isn't always a good thing. It's important because before you set growth in strategic initiatives, you need to know where your profit actually comes from. Top line revenue can be misleading. You can grow sales and still erode profitability if the mix of products and services and customers isn't right. Contribution margin analysis reveals what part of the business truly generates profit and which quietly consume it. Having this clarity before planning allows you to prioritize the high margin opportunities to fuel sustainable growth, or fix and exit low margin segments that drain resources. Making pricing, staffing, and investment decisions grounded on profit reality, in short, helps your strategy focused on profitable growth and not just activity. Now, when this is in green, without margin visibility, your growth can backfire. You can scale unprofitable products or customers. Pricing can get distorted. Discounts or incentives creep in without visibility. Resources scatter as teams chase revenue that doesn't create value. Profit stalls. Everyone's working hard, but the bottom line flattens. The result, a strategy that looks ambitious but drains cash and energy because it's built on incomplete profit data. So before strategic planning, you must know where your profit truly lives. When this input is green, every goal, initiative, and investment aligns with profitability, and growth becomes intentional, not accidental. Tool number 6 is accounts receivables collection and reporting. Now, this report tracks how quickly your company turns sales into cash. That includes things like days sales outstanding, aging reports, collection curves, basically how long it takes customers to pay. Now, it's important because a strong accounts receivables process isn't just about collecting faster, it's what funds your plan. If cash isn't flowing predictably, even the best strategic plan could stall. You can't confidently invest in growth, hiring, or equipment if you don't know when customer payments are coming in. And it's one of the simplest and fastest ways to free up cash for execution without cutting costs or raising prices. Now, when we're tracked closely, cash flow becomes unpredictable, and that uncertainty undermines the entire planning process. Planning is done around assumptions instead of facts. You may improve initiatives that you can't actually fund. You may have to delay investments or overextend credit lines just to cover payroll and expenses. How you efficiently convert accounts receivables into cash flow improves working capital by reducing the amount of money that's tied up in receivables and inventory and increasing the cash available to operate and grow the business. Now, input number 7, account payable metrics. Now, what this is a report that shows your company managing its outgoing payments, what you owe, when it's due, and whether you're paying on time or too early. It includes things like AP aging reports and comparisons of actual payments to practices to vendor terms. It's your dashboard for managing cash strategically. Now, cash is always going to leave the business. The key is controlling when it leaves. Accounts payable is one of the easiest levers to manage that process. When AP is handled well, you can see outgoing cash clearly, time payments to match incoming cash, and make decisions without guessing. Now, this gives you the confidence to move forward on hiring, growth, or capital projects because the cash is actually there to support them. Now, strong AP discipline basically extends your working capital without borrowing, freeing up cash to fund your priorities without putting pressure on day-to-day operations. Now, if it's not tracked or timed well, your cash forecasts become guesswork, and that uncertainty slows down the planning process. You can easily greenlight a new hire or a project thinking the cash is there, only to find out it went out the door early to vendors. On the flip side, pushing payments too late can strain supplier relationships or even disrupt operations. Things like missed early pay discounts, last minute wires, or inconsistent payment patterns also add noise to the numbers to erode trust of both with your vendors and your leadership team. When you're green, you're running the cash cycle intentionally. Input number 8 is your payroll and headcount reporting. These reports show your team payroll costs and how they line up with your business activity. They include current staffing level, total payroll expenses and benefits, and how they're connected to profitability and revenue. In short, they tell you what your workforce really costs and how efficiently it's performing. Now, labor is usually the biggest expense in the business, and it determines how much work you can actually get done. So before you start the strategic planning process, you need to know what your workforce really costs and whether the structure supports where you want to go. So getting the payroll right isn't just bookkeeping, it's capacity planning. Accurate payroll reporting shows where your people are, what you're paying for, and how that translates to output. It ties headcount, compensation, and productivity back to actual performance. If the data is clear, you can model labor costs into your forecast, plan staffing around growth, and see how hiring and efficiency changes impact your profit. Now, when payroll data is incomplete or inaccurate, you're essentially guessing at your biggest expense line. You might think you have capacity and you actually don't, or you cut back in ways that put stress on the team. Labor overruns can chip away at margins quietly, and big initiatives can stall because of the staffing assumptions that weren't grounded in the numbers. So without the clear visibility, decisions on hiring, raises, or restructuring tends to become emotional instead of strategic. And when that happens, your forecast starts to lose credibility. Input number 8, debt and capital obligations. These reports outline what you owe, every loan, line of credit, and lease, along with the repayment terms, interest rates, and covenants that are tied to each. They also include amortization schedules so you can see how principal and interest payments unfold over time. In short, it's your complete map to your company's debt obligations. Now, before you dive into strategic planning, you need to have a clear picture of your real financial flexibility, and that starts with understanding your debt. Debt isn't just a number on the balance sheet, it affects how much you can invest, how much risk you can take, and how believable your plan is. Knowing the repayment schedules, interest rates, and any covenant requirements keeps your forecast grounded in this reality. Now, if your debt information isn't up to date, your strategic plan can drift away from financial reality fast. You might greenlight an initiative that the business can't actually cash flow. You might accidentally trip a covenant that brings unwanted lender attention or miss opportunities to refinance on better terms. Without this visibility, you're basically building a growth plan on guesswork. Now, when this is green, you're using debt as a strategic tool to support growth, not a constraint that surprises you later. Now, the 10th input is your KPI dashboard. Now, what it is these are a handful of numbers and ratios that tell you how your business is really performing. They include things like cash flow, profitability, leverage, efficiency ratio, tailored to what matters most in your industry. Think of it as your company's financial dashboard, simple, clear, built on what investors, boards, and operators look for. Now, the reason why it's important is because before you start the planning process, you need a clear, reliable KPIs that turn your financials into real insight. They're the bridge between the numbers and the strategy. They tell you if your growth is healthy, margins are holding, and operations can support your long-term plan. It's also important to benchmark these KPIs against peers in your industry. Internal numbers alone don't tell you if you're performing well, just whether you're improving. Benchmarking can tell you if you're ahead, if you're behind, and where your biggest value creation opportunities are. When your KPIs are defined, accurate, and benchmarked, your leadership team has a shared language of performance. Now, if they're not there, or clearly defined, or consistently tracked, your plan ends up resting on weak signals. Leaders start debating opinions on facts, chasing too many priorities, or missing the few metrics that really drive value. Without benchmarking against your peers, you might think you're performing well simply because you're improving internally. But the markets may be moving faster, competitors may be more efficient, or the margin in your industries may be tightening. That blind spot can lead to overconfidence or missed opportunities that you can course correct. When this input is green, everyone knows what success looks like and what and how the team is aligned around these metrics and decisions so that you're grounded in data and not opinion. So now we've covered the 10 financial inputs that form the foundation of a decision-ready business. When you have these before strategic planning, you're set up for success. But what if you wanted to be a little bit better? What if you wanted to go a little bit further? Now, if you've ever seen the movie Spinal Tap, you know where I'm going next. That's the famous scene where the guitarist proudly points his amp and says, "This goes to 11." But when asked, well, why not just make 10 louder? He says, "Because ours go to 11." And that's what the best companies do. They go one step further than everyone else. Now, after working with thousands of clients and logging hundreds of thousands of hours in financial leadership at Preferred CFO, we've learned there's one more input that makes the difference. The 11th input, the 5-year forecast. Now, the 5-year forecast isn't just a spreadsheet, it's the bridge between where you are and where you want to be. It shows what growth actually looks like in dollars, debt, people, capacity, and having it in place before your planning process completely changes the conversation. Without it, planning tends to focus on ideas, markets, goals, initiatives, and with it, planning becomes grounded in financial reality. It helps you set strategic goals that are both ambitious but yet achievable. You can see the capital needs and the financing gaps early before they become urgent, and you can align your leadership around priorities that truly move enterprise value. And you can measure whether your plan will actually create the future you're envisioning. Because if you go into the planning without it, you're guessing what's possible instead of engineering it. And that's the difference between operating at 10 and going to 11. And that's where we at Preferred CFO live, helping CEOs not just see the road ahead, but the horizon behind it. So, how ready are your numbers? Now, we've already rated your company across these 10 inputs. Take a minute to look at your sheet for a moment. You probably have some greens, some yellows, maybe a few reds. You say, yeah, we need to tighten that up. And this is where the real work begins. Now, the goal isn't essentially to look at the colors on the chart, it's to figure out what to do about them. What do you do next? And this is what I always think about the cartoon. It's about the consultant who comes into town, draws a bunch of arrows, buzzwords on the whiteboard, stirs everything up, and then he leaves everyone staring at each other, completely confused. Well, that's not what we're going to do here. So instead of just stirring the pot and running away, we're going to slow down and look at your areas of your scoreboard. What inputs are missing? Where's the data unreliable? And what's the next practical step to move from red to green? Because the truth is, for every red zone, that's a signal telling you where your visibility ends and your risk begins. So our next step is to build a strategy to close those gaps. So the plan to upgrade your quality and capture missing data is first, identify the most critical data gaps. And that's probably what's red or yellow on your list. You want to start by clarifying the inputs that can have the greatest impact on decision making. Usually that's cash flow visibility, margin accuracy, and the forecasts. Now, focusing on a few areas prevents you from overwhelming it and making it a meaningful process. So just take a couple of your top ones. From there, you want to assign clear ownership. So we have a simple model that helps you define who is responsible for gathering the data, who validates it, who needs to be consulted, and who should be informed. This removes the ambiguity and ensures accountability. Now, after we've done that, we want to be able to standardize how the data is captured in reporting. So you want to create consistent formats for reporting, either the margin by product, weekly cash position, forecast assumptions. The goal is to have reliable information. We don't really want to create new software or new major system changes. We want to be able to standardly pick the information. And we need to be able to reconcile the data across the systems to make sure the numbers tie out between the income statement, the balance sheet, cash flow, operational systems, your payroll, your inventory, CRM, and job costing. That ensures that the leadership is making decisions from one true financial source. Now, one of the biggest questions we have, one of the biggest barriers, is from a CEO not knowing really who to ask. If you're unsure of where the responsibilities lie, we've developed a matrix for you. The strategic planning tool, financial input RACI template. A RACI chart is a tool that stands for responsible, accountable, consulted, and informed. Responsible is the person doing the work. Accountable is who owns the outcome. Consulted includes the people who provide the input, and the informed who need the inputs to move forward, but aren't necessarily involved in the execution. And informed are the ones that just need to know what's going on. So for the 10 tools that we have a checklist of responsible and accountable. Now, in this case, consulted and informed is essentially you as the business owner. Consulted might be the CFO, where the controller is accountable. But for each of the 10 tools, somebody is responsible for providing the information. Somebody else is accountable for having that information and making sure that it's correct. So the whole key is knowing who to ask and how to ask so that you can get the information back before you undertake the planning process. So our takeaways today were what financial data is needed before starting the planning process. We wanted to see what green looks like and how to measure the quality and reliability of that data, and what to do if something is missing, inconsistent, or unusable. Now, when you go forward, if you find that you need a little help in the process, preferred CFO will be happy to help you in one of two ways. We can either play at your level as the quarterback of the process to oversee, or we can provide hands-on support as a player coach. So as we wrap up, let's return to Deming's reminder. Every system is perfectly designed to get the result that it does. If you want different results next year, start by redesigning the system that produces them, your financial input system. Your plan will only be as strong as the data it's built on. So before you start, ask yourself, do we have these 10 essential inputs? Are they accurate and decision ready? And can I bet our strategy on these numbers? So thank you for joining us today. Here's the better data, stronger plans, and systems perfectly designed to deliver the results that you want. Be happy to take questions along the way. I think Scott mentioned if you would like to see the slides in the chat, just remark slide. If you're looking for just the checklist, you can just write checklist in the slide. If you're looking for just the accountability chart, just write RACI in there. And if you're looking for some help with us, then just type in SOS.
Okay. Bob, I think that's good instruction. I see some people asking for slides and for the checklist already. Let me ask you some of the questions that have come in. One of them is actually pretty complex, and I appreciate Tim. I'm not going to give out a last name for confidentiality purposes, but for the back and forth that we actually have had through a fair portion of this. I think I understand the question that was asked, his question in particular, but let me phrase it. All right, questions. First off, let me get some of the ones that came in earlier that may be a little bit more foundational. How do I know if I'm on accrual basis?
How do you know if you're on accrual basis?
Yes. And I'm guessing that question is not from a CFO because that answer would be automatic. It's probably from some other C-suite or management person.
You would need to talk to your financial team to see how they're accounting for things. So if things are accounted for accrual versus cash, accrual recognizes income when it's earned and not when you collect the money. So if you see large swings in your results, your monthly results, because you got a large deposit from something that you sold a few months ago, or perhaps you had to spend on the other side, you had to spend a lot of money going out before you got the income that's tied with it. You'd be able to tell.
Okay.
Small companies generally start as cash. It's pretty easy. It's just like your checkbook. But as you get larger and more complex, you should be on accrual basis because it allows you to recognize when you earn something and when you incur the debt for something.
Okay. Good answer. Next question. How often should we change our budget?
How often should you change your budget?
Yeah, these are kind of in the order they came in. So that question may have been answered, at least in my mind it was as you went through, but it came in about the time we were talking about that slide.
Right. Well, so your annual budget is established before the beginning of the year starts, and you should not change it because it establishes the priorities and responsibilities for your team. Now, that's really the reason why you say, okay, Bob, but things change over time, and that's really not going to be very good 6 months from now. And you're 100% correct. And that's why we have a 12-month rolling forecast, which is always showing you that 12 months in advance. So let's say after the first quarter, things have changed. Well, your original budget may not change, but your rolling forecast will. So the rolling forecast will always show the new assumptions and the new data that's happened in your marketplace. So it will help you make those decisions.
Okay, good answer. This one I know has probably been answered by your checklist and that, but it was some of these terms I understand, but I'm not familiar with the how. I believe that you answered that through that chart of who's responsible. And if we didn't
do it,
yeah, please let us know and we'll clarify for that. The question that Tim and I went back and forth on, and I identify him because he may want to clarify, but the initial question was related to forecasting. It says this data is internally focused. Strategy should come from the market understanding, right? And so we went back and forth a little bit. He said the belief is vision, mission, objectives, goals. Let me repeat those because I think they're relevant. Vision, mission, objective, goals all needed before the strategy is even considered. Because I think coming back to the original question, Bob, if I understood it, it was that this forecast data needs to come from a lot of different points. I mean, he clarified that it's the company's vision, the mission, objective, goals, but he was asking also about the market data. And I think we agree that that is one of the many areas, the data points that are considered.
It is. So strategic planning is a much bigger piece, right? So there's a sales component to it, there's an operations component to it, there's a people component to it, talent component to it, and the financial component to it. Now they're all put in together for your plan, and what we're talking about today is we want to make sure that the financial inputs are very strong because if they're not, they can derail the best other plans that you have. You can have the best intention for sales, but if they're not grounded in strong financial numbers, the plan won't work. Either you won't be able to undertake and finish an initiative, or in terms of contribution margin, you may think that going forward with one particular product or service is the way you need to go. But if you don't have the correct contribution margin analysis done, you may not know that that's really not your most profitable offering. And you may find out that, you know what, not only is it not the most profitable, it's marginally profitable, and we would be doubling down on something that has very little chance of succeeding and ignoring the opportunity you would have for a growth market.
Thank you. This next question is also from Tim as a follow-up to this back and forth, and then I got two more after that, and we'll be done. I like this one though, because it caused you to think about it. Did me? All this information is assuming that you are post-commercialization and you're going to market, and how does it change if you don't have a 12-month history of sales? How does it change if you don't have a 12-month history of sales? In other words, your pre-revenue.
Well, then you obviously you don't have a history as far as what's worked and what hasn't worked, but it doesn't necessarily change as much as you want to make sure that moving forward that all of these inputs will be accurate. So you've got the best thing about it is that your past data isn't corrupt because you don't have any. So that's the good sign, is that you're not working on incorrect inputs moving forward. So you're essentially moving ahead with your planning and your forecasting. But what you'll want to make sure that you do as you go ahead is that you capture your actual data properly so that next year that data is correct and not corrupt and can be fed into a plan moving ahead. Because planning really isn't a once-off type of deal where we do it once and then we are off, and then 5 years later we come back. Planning is something that should happen essentially every year, where you're always kind of looking at it and tweaking it and moving it ahead forward.
Bob, we don't know exactly who we're speaking to, so if we're speaking to a CFO, that answer probably would have been different. I could see you trying to couch it back into more understandable terms. I appreciate that. Certainly you need to look at competitive analysis when you're putting together a business plan to decide whether there's even a market for what you're bringing to market. And of course, there's a lot of assumptions there. But two last questions. The other one, I'm paraphrasing here. This is a franchise group. They provide financial support for a number of franchisees. Question: how do we create or manage all of these points for not just the head office, but all of the franchises? Franchises, is it too much for one controller CFO to track and have these communicated to each of the franchisees?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
I would say it probably depends upon the size of the operation, but in my opinion, I believe the best way to handle that, particularly for now and for growth, is to create a standardized process of how you're going to do that so that it can be rolled down to the franchise level. So if everybody's doing it the same way, from the corporate level, push it down to the franchise level, it would be easier for franchisees to talk to each other and also to communicate up to the home office and back down to the location.
Okay, good. Thank you. Got another clarification from Tim. He says, what data, parentheses, internal, do you need as inputs to your strategic plan? That's a broad question. I know, Bob, again, we don't know who we're exactly speaking to. CFO speak could be different than CEO speak or another member of the C-suite. So,
yeah, so it's hard to answer exactly what the question's probably more specific and in terms of so in terms of I'm going to mention in terms of contribution margin, right? So in terms of contribution margin, you want to be able to not only capture and segregate sales data, but also cost data per location or per product or per customer. So if you can do that, then you can make better decisions because otherwise, when everything is all lumped together in one category, then you lose the visibility. So it's not that there's anything new or special as far as revenue and cost. It's being able to assign, hey, Scott, you brought in X revenue, Bob brought in Y, and Tara brought in C, but there are certain costs that are associated only with Scott and not with Bob. There are some marginal costs and some variable costs that are available in there. So if you can get the truer picture of what's really going on in your business, you can make the best decisions. Because if you're just looking at general balance sheet or income statement numbers, those are good. But the more specific and broken down they can be, the better information they're going to be and the better decisions you can make.
yeah, I appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, so the last one has, and bring it back up again, it was how many KPIs should we track? Which are the most important?
It's a great question as well. So that depends upon your industry. For one here. So if you put in a report based upon your particular industry, what are the most effective KPI metrics you should be measuring? It's usually based on profitability, risk, leverage, efficiency, and sales operations. But it's different for every company. Service companies are going to be one way, manufacturing companies are going to be another, so it's not always the same. So gross profit's probably going to be for everybody. Everybody needs to know what that is. Your cost of operations is probably going to be the same across the board. But if you're, and let's say you're an engineering company, you really need to know your billable rate hours more so than anything else.
Hey, Bob, I know you're not doing anything for the rest of the week, but I'm going to put this out there. If this is on the KPIs, which is what brought it to mind, if
Right.
have our managing partners been doing this for more than 20 years. As a company, we have literally hundreds of thousands of hours of fractional CFO time over thousands of clients over many, many, many years. AI has given us ability to cull through all that data and combine with other data. And if you would like to know what we believe in our experience and other related data are the most important KPIs to track by your industry, I'm offering that Bob will create a report and send that to you. The most specific, the fastest way to do that is if you know your ASIC number, or older than that, your SIC number. But if not, just make sure we know your company name and your website, your company's web address. You can put that in chat if you want, or you can send it privately to Tara Christman. I'll put her contact information back in the chat right now. But if you want that information about what we believe are the most important KPIs to be able to track, and you have your NASIC number or your SIC number, that'll be great. And if not, just make sure we have your website, your company's web address. Send that privately over to Tara Chrisman. She'll pass along to Bob. And Bob, I just obligated you to send each one of the people that request back a report with recommended KPIs for their industry. So again, I know you have nothing to do for the balance of the week. This is now your new priority.
Be happy to do it.
Bob, I know we're getting close on time, but there is one last question if you have time to address it.
Yes.
It says, I just joined a startup as a CFO. They only have 2 of the 10 on the checklist. The existing data is also not clean. I will be doing a lot of stirring up to implement things. Do you have any recommendations on the best approach in this situation?
Great question. I think the first thing you want to make sure is you've got clean data to work with. So probably number one on the list, right? If you probably just went in order of the checklist, that would be probably the best thing to do. You want to make sure you can provide clean monthly data, reconciled back to a G&L, and it'd be best if it's accrual, because from there everything else kind of grows. If you can't provide that, then it doesn't really matter anything else down the road. So that's really the first place to start. Then from there you can move into you'd want to move into the budget and the budget to actual reporting. Cash flow, although it's further down the list, is critical for every company. So I would put that into a high priority list as well.
Cool. Thank you, everyone. In the chat, you've got contact information for Tara. She will direct questions or desire to spend some time in the how does this apply to me, as is appropriate to either me or Bob or someone else within our organization. Upcoming webinars, these are always on the last or the 4th Monday of each month. So November's webinar will be the 24th, and it is how CEOs can unlock a CFO mindset. And then the one December will be the 16th. We moved that up a little bit because of the holidays. And that is the importance of a company establish a mission, value, or mission, vision, and values. So how CEOs can unlock a CFO mindset, that'll be next month. And the importance of a company establishing a mission, vision, and values in December. Again, thank you very much for joining, and happy to help if you have any further questions. Thanks, Bob. Thanks for sharing your wisdom, time, and prep.